Hi there, this is Brent Harris. Quick adjustment, and here we are. Good to see you again. So, in this video, I'd like to accomplish a few things. The first of which is I'd like to allow the very first part of this video to be an invitation to come out of the mind stream and to more fully occupy the present moment. And so that's what we're going to do presently. And then from that space, I'm going to address what I came here to say around the subject of intelligent optimism, the subtitle being proper orientation toward the days ahead. As I film this is now late March 2023, 24, somewhere around there. We lose track of all these days when we're inside for so long, but that's how it is. And so I'm going to talk about how we can orient ourselves and how we can be our best and greatest possible contribution, and how we can become aware of the influence that we have in these days, so that we can assist each other and ourselves through these times, and ideally into something good, into something better, something that makes all of this worth the wait. And so that's what's in store for you in these upcoming minutes. And I'll aim to keep it around the 20-minute mark. So I've spoken about this at length in other videos, so I don't need to get too much into it here. But the main gist is that I want to invite you into the present moment. And so, of course, when I say that it's not entirely accurate to state it that way in the form of an invitation, because you are already in the present moment. It's more a matter of remembering the present moment and remembering that all there is and all there ever was and all that there ever will be. The only thing that there is the present moment, which is just this moment. And it is true that I'm filming this now and you're watching this later, and so there's a time difference in terms of a clock time difference between my recording this and your watching this. But I'm filming this in the now, and you are watching this in the now, and it's the same now. This now is utterly still. There are things that move around within the now. There's traffic, on the road, birds flying through the sky, and there's, things happening out there, but all of that is happening within the now. And the now itself is still, and it's always unmoving. And in a way, it couldn't be otherwise. It's like empty space itself. Like when you consider empty space, it's beyond indestructible. Like there's no way it could be destroyed, because it, in the most fundamental way, it doesn't exist, even though it does kind of exist. There is such thing as empty space, but it's kind of not a thing. And that's sort of the paradox of the present moment, the now. So can you become aware of the fact that everything is happening, including COVID-19, including all of the upset, including all of the politics, and including all of the ups and downs, and including all of the passage of days and the activities and the movement of money and the movement of resources, all of the things that, have been freaking us out perhaps up until now. All of that is happening within the now. And in a strange way, we're safe within the now, because the more you incline your intention towards the now itself, the more it becomes aware that there's no essential separation or difference or distinction between whatever you consider yourself to be and that. There's no real other. There's no like I'm this and everything else over there is that. It's all made out of the same fabric. It's all the same form, connected, taking place within the context of the formless. And there's an invulnerability there. And I know that, like, as I say that, there's a lot of objections that like 100% come up from the perspective of the mind, of the ego, of the self-preservation instinct, which is what fuels the ego and what fuels the mind and what creates the mind's priorities. It's like, no, like I am a separate self and I am threatened and I am under attack and I do need to hoard and collect and set up boundaries and protect and so forth. And But just for a minute, if you'd be willing to let all that move to the side, just let it all just relax for a second. You don't need to do anything about it. Just let it be there. It's there. And just move a little bit more deeply into this sense of being an aspect of one thing, and to have all other aspects that you see around you, including myself, to still be aspects of the one thing, the one same thing. And as long as this thing is there, you're there. I think that'll do for now. So just feel into that. Don't try so hard to understand it if that's what you're doing right now. It's because it's honestly not intelligible. But that doesn't mean that it's meaningless, because there's still something in you that resonates with this type of knowing. Because when I say this kind of thing, when anybody speaks about the connectedness of all things, and they speak from a place of experience, like experiencing that connectedness, it tends to create a sense of remembrance. It's like, right, yeah, okay, like I know that, it's true. So the first thing that I want to get into is that, or I guess, okay, I'll start here. Here's the main message that I wish to communicate, and that I'm going to get into presently, is that the future, from one perspective, we can say that the future is fixed. So we can say that the virus, which is moving through our world now, it's moving in a determined way, and and things are going to unfold the way that they're going to unfold, and no other way. That the future is fixed, and this is kind of this is sort of a style of philosophical belief, that things are just moving exactly the way that they're going to move. There's no other way. It couldn't have been any other way up until now. And that's all there is to it. And all we can really do is just kind of tolerate it and move with it. And there is truth to that. There is truth to that. But there's also truth to a different perspective, which is that the future is not fixed, and there is actually, we actually have a say, all of us have a say in how things play out. And we are participants in all of this, very much similar to democracy, like in the sense that we all have a vote, and it's only one in a billion, but it's also it counts, like it counts, it is counted and is averaged into the actual outcome, the actual whole. And not only that, but not only does our vote count, but the way we hold ourselves and the way that we conduct ourselves influences others in our midst. Even if all of our interactions are online now, whoever we see, whoever we interact with, whoever we write to, we will be influencing each other, and that influence will pour over into the other people that those people influence, and on from there. So it's interesting, because whenever we are interacting with somebody, it's what we do is very important, and it's not to be taken lightly. Even though the main idea is, it's good to be lighthearted, and it's good to be jovial, it's good to be fun and joking, and it's good to be light about things. But it's important to know that how we influence one person is very much, it's going to echo with increasingly smaller ripples, basically indefinitely. And so it behooves you to choose what kind of participant you want to be in these days, especially since what's happening right now, our reality, the fabric of our reality is so plastic right now. It's so under reconstruction. The whole thing is being pulled apart, and how it's put back together is really, really up to question. And so this is kind of a lightning round for us now. It really matters how we conduct ourselves in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. So that's what this video is about. And so that's the main message. So what I'm going to do for you now is I'm going to list 4 major contributions that you can make to the world going forward. And it's these contributions are in terms of how you react, how you interact with people, and also just how you conduct yourself energetically on a moment-by-moment basis. So I'm going to get into that now. So the first one is you can make a great contribution to the world by adopting a willingness to move beyond blame and to move beyond judgment and to move beyond I don't know the word, like to make people into enemies. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, when you're dividing people into good people and bad people, right people and wrong people, to move beyond all of that division and all of that judgment and labeling of people, and especially blame. So for example, a lot of people are upset with the American president, Trump, and for good reason. You know, if we were to run a critique in terms of how he's been handling this, you know, there's a lot to be desired. There is a lot that could have been improved upon. And that's fair and that's valid, and there's no contesting any of that. But if we hold ourselves in blame around him, and if we're kind of like, if we're talking about how bad the situation is and how bad it is because of what he did, we are holding ourselves in an unnecessary sense of victimhood to him. And that is not as effective a headspace as one where we move beyond blame and we just accept the situation as it is so that we can wipe the slate clean and approach it fresh. Because when we do it that way, we are able to access a deeper wellspring of creativity. Like there's more resources that become available to us, mental resources, creative resources, emotional resources. And like there's a lot of newness and freshness that becomes available if we're willing to release blame. So we're not even necessarily letting him off the hook. Like for example, like if there's justice to be served, maybe there is, but for a second we're putting that aside and we're just dealing with the situation we're dealing with the situation as it is, beyond blame and beyond judgment. This also applies to if you see people who are breaking isolation, breaking quarantine. If there's something to be done about that, like for example, if you're able to speak to a person and encourage them to go back home, if you have some influence in the matter where you are able to like really tell them in really strong, curt words, you need to get back inside because you're putting everybody at risk, you should do that. But if you are holding yourself, if you're contributing rage to them or anger, if you're labeling them, if you're calling them bad people, then what you're doing is you're creating that sense of polarization. You're creating more good versus wrong, evil versus good versus evil, right versus wrong. That only perpetuates distancing from people and strains communication and strains relationships. And makes cooperation more and more difficult. There's this old maxim, which is love the sinner and hate the sin, and that would very much apply here. Although I would encourage you not to hate anything, but simply if you're able to influence the situation in a way that's respectful, if you can still have respect for everybody, that will make you the most effective, and it will produce the best results, and it will create the strongest likelihood of actually, you know, people staying at home and doing the right thing. So that's number one. So willingness to move beyond judgment, to move beyond blame, to move beyond divisions and so forth. So there we go. Number two, an extension of number one. Number two is you can be your greatest contribution to the world right now if you're willing to drop negativity around the situation. And I say this with an understanding that this can be immensely challenging. I realize I'm not asking of something small, especially if you're in a place where you are like influenced and you see it everywhere and it's difficult. But the more you are able to release a sense of should in terms of how this situation is supposed to be. All of us are in agreement that this should not be happening, but that sense of should is not helpful. It's much more helpful to just move into the situation and see it exactly as it is, without a sense of denial, without a sense of, I guess, shoulding it away, but instead seeing it exactly as it is, and with the best and most updated information that we have, and dealing with it, from that place. That will allow us, again, to produce the best results, and it will allow us also to stay centered, really, really centered within ourselves, which is how we can be our most intelligent and offer our most intelligent contributions. So at the very beginning of this video, when I was talking about, coming into the now and just remembering the now and finding that peace and stillness, the more you're grounded in a place like that, the more your actions will carry just so much more productivity and so much more benefit than from doing it from a place of negativity and fear and being plugged into fear. Number 3. You can be your greatest contribution by being willing to ground into all is well. When I say all is well, I don't mean to imply that what is happening is good, because it's not. It's for all intents and purposes, it is tragic. It is very sad, and it's a lot of trouble, and it's a very, very difficult, challenging period that all of us are moving through, and we're challenged in different ways and on varying levels. And there's no getting around that, and there's no making light of that. That this is a profoundly difficult situation that we are in. It's helpful, however, to plug ourselves back into the now, and to note that by and large, all is well. And when I say that, I mean that for example, all of us, we have breath in our lungs, and and most of our faculties are still online. There's a great likelihood that if you're watching this video, then you're in a relatively stable situation. There are no asteroids, for example, that are like running into Earth and blowing up the planet. And even if there was an asteroid that hit Earth and blew up the planet, the universe and the galaxy itself, by and large, is well, and it's still moving, and it's still, and it's okay. There's a deep sense of okayness that goes beyond the level of judgment, not like, oh, this is okay and this is not okay. But when I talk about this deep sense of all is well, it's the sense of the invulnerability of all that is, and an allowance to allow form to move as it's going to move, while we at the same time take all the actions, the most intelligent actions that we can take in order to make ourselves well in a more relative sense. Man, I hope that makes sense. I believe it does. Cool. And then number 4, finally, is a willingness to accept responsibility for your energetic contribution and your intention. And so this is kind of where I wanted to cap it off, because I would like for this video to serve as an invitation for you not to hold some kind of unrealistic optimism like, oh, it's going to be fine, whatever, and kind of sweeping it all away without really looking at the situation as it is and acknowledging it in its full reality. What I'm talking about is looking at it in its full reality and imagining ways in which it can go well. And not only that, but imagining what you can do, what you can be, and what you can offer, and how you can serve in order to assist in this going well. And to continue to hold a vision of what the best possible outcome of this might be, and to hold the knowing that it's possible. There's something interesting that happens when we are willing to hold a possibility and to look beyond the different probabilities. People say it's probably going to go this way, probably going to go that way, but to just hold the knowing that the future is not fixed, it's unwritten, it's not yet decided, And furthermore, it's decided by the contributions that all of us offer, the extent to which we hold on to negativity, the extent to which we hold on to judgment, or the extent to which we release it and open up new ideas for how things can get good from here and better, and how quickly we can recover, and what that recovery might look like, and how we can put things back together even better than how they were before. So that is my fourth and final suggestion for how you can be a contribution to this. Hold on to the possibility of things going really well, and imagine how things can go really well, and take all the appropriate actions that you're inspired to take from there. Because if you do that, then your influence will spill over. And if you're willing to really ground yourself in this knowing, then your higher and more positive contributions can have an effect of nullifying the lower fear-based ones. And I think that's the one thing that is really being asked for in these times. So if you're down for it, may I suggest that you be that contribution. And thank you for watching.